Hey, this is Dan from MusicXplorer. We're here today with Dick Boak. He's got an incredible history at Martin Guitars. His career started in 1976, but prior to that, he was making odd instruments out of Martin scraps. As time went on, C.F. Martin III eventually saw the guitars he was making, and he was told to apply for a job. He was hired as a draftsman and stayed on with Martin for 42 years in numerous roles. Dick has worked with many artists, including Eric Clapton, Mark Knophler, Steve Miller, Stephen Stills, and many more. Dick retired in 2018 to focus on his illustrations and to help his neighbor Mary Andretti with his archives. How you doing today, Dick?
Doing great. Nice to be with you.
Thank you for being part of MusicXplorer interview. So you've got such an impressive career with Martin Guitars. I mean, you've been there your whole life. I mean, your whole professional career prior to 1976, you were doing other things. But what brought you to Martin Guitars?
Well, I was teaching art in Blairstown, New Jersey, at a small school called Blair Academy. And to get to Blairstown from my hometown of Bethlehem, I had to go right through Nazareth. I had seen a billboard for Martin Guitars to take the factory tour. And I was interested in music and guitars from a very early age. I had been trying to build guitars in my basement with very limited success. And I decided to stop in and see Martin Guitars. I asked at the front desk if they had any scrap woods. And the receptionist sent me around to the back to the dumpster, filled my car up with mahogany and rosewood scraps. And I kept coming back to the dumpster probably 500 times. And they got to know me at the back door. And one day, Harvey, the shop foreman in the machine room, had saved some things for me. And he said, well, what do you do with this stuff anyhow? And I had some examples of my instruments. I handed them up to Harvey, and he paraded them around the shop, and he ran into Mr. Martin, C.F. Martin III, who looked at my instruments and said, tell that kid to apply for a job. He said, could you start tomorrow? I could start on Wednesday. So working on the draftings got me familiarized with every specification of Martin Guitars, and I was just in heaven.
Did you ever think that you would ever actually work for a guitar company? I mean, it just happened to fall in your lap?
It seemed that the combination of art, drafting, woodworking, and music, basically my four loves, was just a really good situation for me. After that, I kind of managed the advertising department. I started getting phone calls about Eric Clapton's MTV Unplugged guitar. What guitar was he playing, and where could people get one? And it was actually the 00042. It was really a model that we didn't make anymore. And so I went to Chris Martin and I asked permission to contact Eric Clapton and see whether or not we might propose a limited edition signature model. Well, Martin hadn't really been doing anything like that. We had dabbled in it with Gene Autry and had done a Gene Autry guitar. And the template for that was that the royalties would be paid to the charity of the artist choosing. Eric Clapton responded very positively to that. He had lost his son Connor in the tragic accident, and we established a charity, which was the Eric Clapton Charitable Trust for Children, dealing with children's safety issues. And we designed a beautiful guitar with Eric, a replica of kind of a combination of guitars that he used on the Unplugged show. We took the prototypes of that guitar to the trade show. We were offering 461 instruments in the edition, and they all sold out to the dealer network within 2 hours. So it was a huge, huge success. And from that point on, I was in charge of signature models and artist relations. So that's really the job that I always wanted anyway.
I mean, you worked with, I think, Eric Clapton for 3 years on that?
That was the first of almost 11 or 12 different projects we did with Eric Clapton. We did the 00042. That model was so successful, we decided to do what Eric called the poor man's Clapton, which is the 00028. It was not as fancy, didn't have a lot of pearl on it. It sold immensely well. In our dealings with artists, we usually defer to their choice, because somebody like Paul Simon played a smaller body orchestra model guitar. Somebody like Johnny Cash played a larger dreadnought guitar. I had many intersections with Eric, and all of them very pleasant. He really is a one-on-one person. He's been very, very gracious to me over the years. I don't think any other artist that Martin has dealt with has had such a profound impact on the acoustic guitar market or on Martin guitar sales.
Do you still talk to Eric about guitars?
Yeah, recently Acoustic Guitar Magazine asked their readership, have you been affected by a particular musician in any dramatic way? Well, I read that request, and I immediately sat down and typed out a statement about how impactful Eric had been upon my life, upon the success of Martin guitars, and in a broader sense on the popularity of bringing back the 000 14 fret guitar and kind of repopularizing that model. So I wrote a very impassioned letter, and Acoustic Guitar published it. Eric read it over in England and called me up, and he was in tears.
Wow.
Tears from heaven,
Yeah.
Get better than that, getting a call from Eric.
That's great.
Working with Paul Simon was incredible. I'm a huge fan of his songwriting and his musicianship. He's just he puts so much into everything that he does. I actually went into New York City. It was in December. This would have been 1995, December. And I went in. It was snowing. I had a bunch of instruments to show him. He wasn't there, so I went into his office. This is in the famous Brill Building in Manhattan, and waited for him. And the door opened, kind of creaked, and he was there with his poncho and his Eskimo coat. And he saw one of the guitars that I had brought. It was a beautiful, beautiful, fancy guitar. He picked it up, strummed it, set it back in the case, said, "I don't think so," and slammed the door.
Really?
I looked at his manager. I said, "Well, what's that all about?" And he said, "I don't know." And maybe 15 seconds went by. The door opened up again, and Paul said, "Just kidding." So we know that he has a sense of humor.
Yeah, right.
So he actually came out to Martin. He realized that he really needed to come to Nazareth and walk around and see all the different models, try all the different neck shapes, try all the different body sizes, and see what he really liked for his signature model. And he came out. So I was taking Paul around. We had a great success with Paul, and followed up with a second signature model, and I also made a high string guitar. He plays a lot of high string. You know what that is, where you tune the 4 bass strings an octave above pitch. You have to use special gauge strings, and it just gives a beautiful crystalline sound. And he used high string guitar on a lot of the Graceland songs, and I had a special guitar, special beautiful Style 42 black guitar made for Paul, just for high string playing.
The time we borrowed from ourselves